AMC Jedi Council. We're back once again, and I am Kristian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff. And with me is a new council, yet an old council. I don't know what that means. First, to my right, she is the Queen Amidala, Maude Garrett. What's up, Maude?
Bothans bow down. Your Quitch is in town.
I like the Quitch.
Queen.
No, that's it.
I
That's
made up
the new
a word.
meme.
Quitch.
That's it.
Quitches get bitches. Can I say that?
You just did. Joining her, he hasn't been back since Celebration. He was there on the floor. He is an AMC Movie Talk cohort. He is Mark D2, Mark Ellis.
I think that's the name that we should. That's the keeper.
Do you know why, though, before you argue with it? I know you so well just from the look. Before you argue, because his but next to Luke,
yeah.
R2 is his favorite
Might
character.
even be above Luke. I
Wow.
mean, look, when I was a youth, my first license plate, I got it personalized, and I got Red 5 on it. I got Red
Nice.
V, which would be a homage to Luke Skywalker. But then you start thinking about an R2-D2. My God, nothing else happens in this universe without that little
He is a
droid.
little badass, too. Okay.
I just pictured your impersonation of R2-D2 being like, boop, dee-loop, blip, blop.
Give us a little. Wonderful. All right.
I still want to fight for
what?
Ellis. What is it? Wedge Antilles.
That's a good one, too. Tell us.
Like that.
Okay, welcome to JMC, AMC Jedi Council. And so if you're brand new to this show, obviously we celebrate all things Star Wars, and we don't just celebrate the movies, we celebrate anything that's canon inside of the universe, and that means anything that links back to the movies. Could be anything. It's a wide range here on the show, but first we do talk about the movies, and that is the segment called Star Wars News Stories. We break down everything that is happening in the week of movie news, and the Queen breaks it down for us. What is up first?
Freaking break it down. All right. First things first, today we've got the Japanese press conference for Star Wars The Force Awakens with Daisy Ridley and Kathleen Kennedy.
I'm shocked that you're not more excited reading that story. Because this is the first time they're actually promoting this.
Again.
Try it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Japanese press conference for Star Wars The Force Awakens with Kathleen Kennedy.
I think I like the first one better.
Yeah,
This is exciting for all of us because
Sorry to people's ears, by the way.
that's all right. You know why, though? This is real. It's real. This movie's happening. They're talking about it now. They're not just shutting the closet. And they're like, all right, guys, now you can start talking about it. It's like, yes, we saw the trailer and yes, we saw everything too. But now that the cast and Kathleen Kennedy are actually talking more about it, the question I have to you guys is, this is the first round, so they're not going to give any details of story and stuff yet. Will we get a synopsis in one of these press conferences? Maude, do you think anything is going to come out, or just like, hey, we're excited, we shot the movie?
I'm going to quote Death Cab for Cutie, and it just feels like this is a faucet that leaks, but there's comfort in the sound. So I think they're just dripping. Right, so deep, right? I went through a phase. That was a breakup. But it's just like that kind of, they're just dripping bits of information, and the fact that they are is enough for everyone. Are they going to reveal much? I don't think so. I think it's just going to trickle on through, and before you know it, it's December, and you're like, hey, let's do it.
Well, didn't it feel like a press conference when we were at Star Wars Celebration? Thursday morning, that felt like a presser, and then obviously they showed us a trailer at the end of that hour, which was just one of the coolest hours of my life. So here, maybe it's more business-like, it's more official. I like that they're doing it in Japan because it's a nod to Kurosawa and how much of an influence he was on George Lucas. So this is very exciting to me. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting timing because I know that you've been honking the last couple of weeks that maybe we get new Star Wars footage quicker than we would think. Maybe even something attached to Avengers or somewhere around there.
I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, especially now. The movie comes out on Friday. But would I have been shocked? No. I think there's going to be, you hope something happens on May the 4th. And I don't know necessarily if it'll be a trailer or what it is, but it should be something fun. And that could be casting. Remember, right before May the 4th last year, I think is when the cast was announced for The Force Awakens.
I remember that because I thought it was such a missed opportunity that they didn't do it on May the 4th.
Right. It was a couple days before, and you had stuff to talk about on May the 4th, so maybe that was it. You would hope that they give us something to talk about on May the 4th, but it could be anything. It could be an announcement of cast. It could be for Rogue One. It could be an anthology movie. I don't know, but it's...
Well, I don't think you're bringing Daisy Ridley over there just to hang out. Like, it's nice that she's one of the stars of the film and she's going to be at the press conference, but wouldn't you think that they would announce something maybe central to her character if she's the one that's going to be at the press conference? Because they're not bringing anybody else from what I read. We don't know if Boyega or Oscar Isaac or anybody else is going to show up, but we know we've seen Daisy Ridley on screen in both the trailers. It seems like she might be one of the, if not the central figure in this new film, so maybe you do get a plot point surrounding her backstory.
But I think that that's exactly the reason why, is because she's not well known. She's going to be. she's the one that she's going to have a pretty crucial part in this franchise. Get her out there now. Let everyone know, because you're starting to learn more and more about her. She's all over that second trailer. I mean, close-up. She's one of the, I think, only ones that has like that close-up.
Got a couple good close-ups. She's holding Darth Plagueis' staff.
There you go. Tip jar.
It's funny that you make that point, though, because on this particular website, StarWars7news.com, they say that this particular video, someone's captured footage of the press conference, and it says it's via Daisy Ridley Daily. So she's already got a huge fan base.
Right.
Yeah, that they're really kind of building up.
It's like they're seeking out their farm team. Like they know who they're putting. They're placing their bets. They're drafting. Oh yeah, she's going to be the top dog, and she very well. Oh, it's very nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Hey,
nice.
yeah,
Nice.
All right.
Wow.
All right, nice to see you. So I guess
is that guy?
I have no idea.
That new intern's really nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. Okay, so that is the first story as far as the Star Wars news goes. What is the second? What's up on the docket?
We've got Joss Whedon talking about the fact that he would, indeed, if asked, like to do a Star Wars movie. What do you think about this? Joss Whedon doing Star Wars? Sign me up.
I don't like it.
Ow, here we go.
I don't like it. I'll tell you. And I know that I'm gonna get in trouble for this. And
Hey,
I don't.
own it.
I have to
Get
own
it.
it.
You get in there.
I think Joss Whedon is super talented. I think that he made the first Avengers special. Now we're going to see a lot of coverage from this channel from a bunch of people as it goes on about the Avengers. It's Avengers weekend. I thought Avengers 2 was good. I don't necessarily know that he deserves all of the geek god praise that he gets yet. Now, should he eventually? Yes. I've never been a huge fan of his TV shows. I know people. I know people swear by them. For me, I think that his style, he likes to write kind of cheesy jokes and stuff too, and that's his thing. Like the Buffy was kind of flavored with it. I don't want to see his type of style in Star Wars. I just don't. I know that's me, and I know people love Joss Whedon, and I'm getting cursed at right now, but I just don't want to see him in the Star Wars universe. I'd like to see him do another comic book movie. I think that would be great.
I think there's very few people that can helm a huge franchise like what the Marvel Universe has become or what Star Wars is. And so if Joss Whedon wants to do a Star Wars movie, I wouldn't hate that idea at all, because you brought up the humor aspect too. Look, Star Wars has a lot of humor in it too, and you need the humor to balance out all the dark things that are happening. Even in Empire Strikes Back, there's some light moments in there, and one of the things that let me down about the prequels, one of the many things, was that some of the humor really missed. I mean, they put Jar Jar in there, and he's primarily acting as what C-3PO and R2-D2 were to a large extent in the original trilogy, which is some comic relief. You need laughs in a universe like this, okay? This is space fantasy. You got to have some sort of humor. One of the most impressive things about Avengers Age of Ultron to me, yes, I've seen it, ladies, is that it is funny. It's not just action-packed. The action's fantastic. It's funny. I think Joss Whedon is one of the few guys that can come in here, and like you said, okay, he's directing it, but Marvel has a brain trust around them that can work back and forth with the director and their ideas.
Because look what he's done so far since he's leaving. He's had all these comments now about, it almost seems like he's spiting Marvel here and there with this comment.
Hey, I don't care about what I read in the press as much as what I see on screen. What I saw with the Age of Ultron and the first Avengers
but you were at Celebration, dude. You saw who they're hiring at Celebration. They're hiring hardcore fans and people who are working like this big family. And if Joss Whedon, what happens if Joss Whedon does something in his movie that they don't necessarily want to happen in the story group timeline, and then he starts taking shots at them and everything too. It just his comments that he was making on Marvel really set me back a little bit too. Like, oh no, it was almost like he was saying that he was higher over Marvel, and this is my universe. That's the way I took it. Like it was almost like he created this universe, and now he's deciding to step away. And about the stuff he said about S.H.I.E.L.D., and I don't know. His comments over the last couple of weeks have rubbed me the wrong way, and I don't necessarily know if I want him part of Star Wars right now.
The reason why I would want Joss to be in the Star Wars universe, especially as the director, is the point that you made. They are giving fans, people that love Star Wars, opportunities like this. And I think Joss Whedon is a huge Star Wars fan, that he would cherish and nurture the franchise. But you did make a good point.
Thank you.
And that point is it was a little bit obvious that he felt exhausted by Age of Ultron, that his hands were tied because the slate's going up, 7 years from now. And that's going to happen with Star Wars because they are planning for the next however many movies, and he would have to abide by the rules of their canon that they've put forward. Right. So I see that you're making a point. I still think that it would be great. He did say in this particular article, though, that the first thing that he wants to do now is take a big nap. The guy's buggered.
And he should. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons. To be fair to him, this is a lot of work that he's done over the last 3 years, on 4 years. So I get it, and that's the thing. He might be talking out of exhaustion. We've all said silly things.
And he gets the same question from how many reporters tons of times. I
want it to be said though that I know what the guy is, and I know how great he is. I want to see if he's able to transfer that. It makes me nervous with Star Wars. I hear Gareth Edwards, who, when you hear him talk, it's like someone gave him a Christmas present. He's like, and I don't know if you'd get that from him. I mean, initially, yeah, but while he's on set and everything, too, I'm just nervous.
Yeah, but comments are one thing, but the actual movie, and I love Godzilla, too, but would you rather see the guy who made Godzilla, or would you rather see the guy who made Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron direct a Star Wars movie? I mean,
I don't know after seeing that little teaser, though.
And I'm so excited. Yeah. Gareth Edwards, I love that Godzilla movie. By the way, the other director that they got to do a spinoff movie, Josh Trank, was too sick to show up at Celebration. So, you're never going to have the perfect scenario ever again. There's just too many movies to make to have it perfect in a vacuum every time.
I know I'm in the minority. I get it.
I think Joss would be great doing one of the standalone films, not in the next trilogy.
Right. I think that's what it
needs to do.
It has to be anthology.
He needs to stop taking pictures like he thinks he's a young Ron Howard, because that's an insult to every picture that Ron Howard has ever done. He looks like he's on the set of Willow. I mean, come on, man. Get your own thing.
Willow.
Yeah, all right. What's next?
You're all pigs.
What's next?
All right. The anthology films to cross over with Rebels. We do know that Rebels has been slated to be the next kind of chapter in the Star Wars universe. Does this mean that the anthology films could cross over?
What happened to you?
Stop eating your red vine.
I have priorities at the moment.
Did your holocron just crap out or something? So what was your question? Because you kind of went in and out on that.
The link's broken. I'm trying to stall.
Right, I think the question, as far as /Film had a report that they think that it's possible now that Rebels is going to cross over with the films, because Dave Filoni had an interview and he basically said that he's talked to the filmmakers and said, like, listen, anytime you guys need any one of our guys, write them in there. Let's do it, if the story fits. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because, by the way, Dave Filoni, very respected in that family, very respected for what he's done with not only the Clone Wars, with Rebels, obviously. You hear people talk about that guy and the way that he talks and the way that his cast, his crew, the people he works with. So it makes sense that he would say that. And because of the time period with Rogue One, whoever's alive in Rebels, by the time we get to Rogue One, someone's going to appear.
Yeah, the time frame is really interesting as to when season 2 of Rebels kicks off and when Rogue One actually comes out. I mean, I'm one of those people that I didn't really care that much about Rebels until Kristian made me start watching it. And once I did, a guy who comes from the Star Wars film universe primarily loved it. And I would love to see these characters on the big screen, either in Rogue One or in some of their own adventures, live action style. Watching Rebels, I'm not sure that they're all going to survive from that much longer. That's one of my main concerns, is that it's a Disney show. It's on Disney XD. Okay, so it's on the most kid-friendly side of what the Star Wars universe is now. Are they going to be totally comfortable with Darth Vader just chopping?
Did you not see the end of season 1?
It gets real intense, but they haven't killed anybody yet. They haven't killed a main character yet. They haven't killed an Ezra or Kanan.
Yeah, don't point.
And these are two people that have not showed us that we have not seen in A New Hope or were even referenced in the film.
No, it's a good point.
What are they all chilling on Alderaan during Rogue One? Like, what happened?
Maybe. Maude?
Well, the article that Dave Filoni spoke out about this was saying that nothing's set in stone at all, but he's really excited at the prospect that it could happen. Right. And he's working very, very closely with the LSG, the Lucas Story Group, saying, where's the future headed? He's also saying that the story of Rebels is kind of parallel to the story where The Force Awakens is. So things that are happening here are happening alongside it. Yeah. Can they meet up? Absolutely. Will they? We'll see. He's also saying that it won't have a direct effect at all. So things that are happening, I think his analogy was, and I was like, oh, that's your analogy? But he was saying that the miners in Chile that were trapped, the world knew about it, but we weren't there. We didn't meet them.
Right.
So what could happen is if something happens with the rebels, people could hear about it, but they're not directly affected.
So that'd be cool too, though. Yeah. Just kind of mentions and stuff too, and that you necessarily wouldn't be lost. Like us, because we've seen Rebels, if someone mentions Kanan or Ezra, we'd be like, oh, cool. As where someone, if someone else who doesn't watch Rebels was sitting there and it was just went over their head, fine. It's like when they mention the bounty hunter we ran into in Armandel, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the primary goals of the brain trust is making the movies. It's like, let's make great films, and we want to appease the hardcore fans, but I don't want my mom nudging me when she's watching
What's that?
Rogue One, being like, who's that? Why is there a fathead, a Princess Leia on the back of the cantina? Like, I want her to be able to follow and enjoy the story. You shouldn't have to read every book and watch every animated show just so you can get the film.
And I don't think that they're going to do that. And I think that, but what I did realize walking around Celebration, when you see these cosplays, How many Kanans did you see?
There
I saw
were a ton just from Rebels. So I'm with you. There's no way that these universes aren't going to cross over.
Right. Okay. What's next?
Excuse me. Woo! A new.
No more red vines on this.
Seriously.
I never really ate them before, and now I'm just like, I get it.
Kind of like white trash Twizzlers, you know?
Next.
I don't think that's very nice. I don't know what, if there's an insult.
Just read the news. That's fine.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
Another location used in The Force Awakens says that it's shot inside the 3rd largest cave in the world. This cave is the 2nd largest on Vietnam, and this is apparently where some of the shooting was taking place. Is this the same place where they shot the external scenes in the island, for the island of Skelling?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's kind of it. Well, how do they keep this under wraps? Oh, this is how we decided and how we figured it out that this was for the Force. There is a sign outside this particular cave that didn't technically break embargo, but it just said, how big this cavern was. It's 330 feet high, 600 feet across. It's so spectacular that it's playing home to several upcoming blockbusters and other, including A, B, C, and others that the Force compels us not to disclose. Guess what? You just disclosed it.
Right. I think this is awesome. This goes back to the conversation we've had on this show that JJ got a huge applause for at Celebration, and that was the practical effects, the locations, going back to basics, making the actors feel like they're in the locations. Because if you're in that location, you're feeling like you're on another world, man. And I don't know if that necessarily was the scene when Luke or whoever that might have been puts their hand down on R2-D2. Looked like a cave type thing. This could be Sullust. I don't know. This could be anything, but it could. But that's the thing. It could be, and it will be something special. I love that they're shooting here, Mark.
I'm disappointed. I don't know why we couldn't shoot in the world's biggest cave or the world's second biggest cave. Why do we have to go down to the 3rd biggest cave? You look at that. That is intense, man. You're right. The practicality of this, the way that you have to actually put the actors in that world physically is so exciting. And I love when every time there's a new Star Wars film that comes out, you get more terrain, you get different planets, you get new things. This is continuing that legacy. This is great news.
Maude?
Oh, I think it's a beautiful scene. I mean, you automatically start going, which planet could it be? What scene? The people that are kind of speculating at the moment are saying, like I said, it was outside the internal shots that they shot on Skellig, which is the island. I think I said Skelling before, but that's a character in A New Dawn, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is.
There you go. That's why I got it confused. So I love that this was kept under wraps so well until a tiny, little plaquade outside is like, how cool's our cabin? The Force says we can't tell you why.
Right. Clever.
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, that is pretty exciting stuff. Just to know all the different places that we're going to see and just going to feel real. I mean, look, man, even that opening shot in the teaser too, wherever that's Abu Dhabi, I believe, and as they're zooming by and everything looked real. I am still. You can't convince me that Star Destroyer is actually not.
It might still be there.
Jakku.
Possible.
It's a planet plagued by a war that's just passed.
I don't know. I think that it might, because I see water there too, and I don't know if that necessarily. I think it's going to be that's where Luke's kind of holing out. We'll see.
Right.
What is next?
Alrighty. In a recent interview, Carrie Fisher let slip saying the words, in one of the sequels. So, of course, she ended up in the rest of the interview going, I can't talk too much, my big mouth. That's the biggest thing here. I can't say anything, but I keep leaking things that I shouldn't, because the interviewer picked up on it straight away. He was kind of speaking to her saying, you're a writer, you're a storyteller, you're all of these things. Do you want creative right over what's happening with the character Leia since you've been playing her for so long? And she was saying, yeah, look, something in the scripts in one of the sequels I wasn't okay with. And he was like, oh, what? So does this mean that the Leia is going to be in more than one of the sequels?
I don't think it's a huge surprise. I know some people thought she might die in the first one. I think she's going to be in 7, 8, and 9. Possibly dying in 8. I don't know, but I think Han's the one that's crapping out. Yeah. I think Han's gone. I've been saying this for a while.
You've been rooting for it for a while.
It's not rooting. It makes sense.
He'll shed a tear when it happens. If it happens.
Of course, I don't want him to die. It's where the character's going. But as far as the first thing is, everyone loves to interview her, and I know a guy that actually ran to the panel because he wanted to see. She said out of all the panels, she was going to be the one to probably give up some information on the movie, because she does that. She's done it a bunch of times, not on purpose. It's just how she is.
Did she kiss some of her fans?
She made out with one guy on stage. Yeah, it was insanity.
14 of them off stage.
Off stage, right? But I don't think it's a shock that she's going to be in 8. I think she's going to wind up being the queen of. I mean, although Oscar Isaac said that he was in that press conference he said a certain princess sent him on a mission.
But I mean, look, we're really reading really deep into what these guys are saying.
That's what we do on the show, Marcus.
But you could say princess, referring to Princess Leia. I mean, she at one point was a princess. We know her most for being Princess Leia, not Queen Leia. If she turned into that, which is definitely what I think happened.
Do you call Princess Elizabeth? No, you say Queen, don't you?
I just call her that broad in that other country. But I think that when you heard Kathleen Kennedy say that, okay, women are going to have a lot bigger role in this new trilogy, and and we don't know if that's just for the side of good. I think there's going to be some real evil women.
Oh man, Gwendolyn Christie, man.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that I think Leia, Princess Leia, now whatever Leia, might have the biggest role of any of the original 3 cast members that are coming back to this movie.
So you're not shocked she's coming back?
Absolutely not. I think it's great news.
Maude?
At one point, I was like, the Force Awakens will be the passing of the baton from, the original trilogy cast, then kind of going, here are the new ones to take on and to continue the journey. But you're right, where we're at, like the end of Return of the Jedi, yes, Alderaan has been blown up, but she's also one of the few diplomatic people in a position of power that she can use it. So if the government needs to be rebuilt, she's one of the key members that can make that happen. And I think maybe... I don't know. Is Mon Mothma still going to kick some butt?
It's a great question. If Mon Mothma's going to be around,
I think Max von Sydow is going to play Mon Mothma.
Maybe it's possible. Interesting. But yeah, I think that it's no shock to anyone that she's going to be back.
Well, the Leia comics are kind of setting up that she's still on this diplomatic mission.
It's set up a bunch of stuff,
hasn't it?
Okay. Speaking of which, that is the end of Star Wars news stories. The next segment on the show, which is simply called What's the Deal with Canon? This is everything that is in the Star Wars universe, and this could be the video games, the novels, the comics, the TV shows, anything that connects back to the Ultimate Universe that we learn from the movies, that is canon. Now, Maude, what are we starting with today in canon?
Talks of Battlefront. We had the announcement of what Star Wars Battlefront was all about at the recent celebration. And of course, us gamers like to get on the internet and just complain about everything that they thought they heard. So another article has been produced saying and debunking some of the myths. I know when I heard about it, I was super excited, mainly not because of what the game entails, but how they were getting that content. The fact that they were being so authentic by using the sound effects and using actual makes and models and capturing it like identically. But the people that actually want a good game are going, how many maps are we going to get? How are we going to play this game? Are we going to have a single story player campaign mode? Well, the article is saying what's myth and what's fact.
What do we got?
Alrighty, the first one is there will be no single player aspect to the game. All gameplay is online multiplayer only. That's a myth. In actual fact, the focus of the game, yes, it is a multiplayer game, but so are all Battlefronts. They are saying that they're pushing the multiplayer capacity there, so you can jump online and play with a bunch of randoms you've ever met and, save the world. But if you want to, you can play by yourself. In doing so, though, you get other people helping you out on your missions. Yeah. It says here, while multiplayer is the focus of the game, Battlefront will allow the player to partake in single-player campaigns of sorts, which can also be played in multiplayer. So there you go. You can also play split-screen, co-op. So if you and I want to have a gaming night, we can on the same television.
And
all right.
That wasn't an invitation.
I'll think about it.
Well, the other thing that they talked about as well too was they started, and this is kind of why I wish John was here today, because this is, and Maude, you might be shocked here. This is the first time I've been a little nervous with canon. Yeah, because when they also had an interview, a follow-up interview about Battlefront in the canon, like, because we saw Boba Fett, we saw Vader on Jakku. What's the deal? And then they basically said, well, certain elements are canon, like the actual planets are okay by Lucasfilm, but actual seeing Boba Fett, because it's not an actual story-led game, that there's no campaign, so you can play as Boba Fett on these planets. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's alive. It just means the planets themselves, it gets a little wonky is what I'm saying.
It could also mean that they just don't want to release that information through a video game, as opposed to when you could see Boba Fett back in a film, and that's how they want to do it. I mean, I think,
but then they shouldn't have put that in the trailer, though.
Of course they would. That is a carrot to dangle.
They want to, dude. They want to, before they convince hardcore fans about what is canon, what is not canon. They want to sell video games.
Right.
And seeing Boba Fett in that trailer just up that game. Everybody went crazy when they saw that. Oh, that guy! I know that guy. That's huge. When
Absolutely,
you're trying to sell
and that's what I'm saying. They put that in, but they knew they had to be prepared for the question because all of us did it last week, and everyone else. Wait, so that means Boba Fett's alive? And they're like, no, it just means you can play with him, like because it's not an actual story campaign. And what it made me seem, although they didn't say it, was there will be other games that have the campaigns that those stories are indeed canon.
Yeah.
But because this one you're playing, because in one you could have Boba Fett fighting rebels, and then there could be one where the rebels kills Boba Fett in 2 seconds or whatever it is, and that doesn't mean he's dead there. So I understood why they were saying it. It's just this is where I agree it gets a little wonky. Where they should be upfront and say right off the bat, this is what is and this is what isn't.
I think you're right. If they do it like that up front, there's nothing to compare it to. You don't have to backpedal. And it's like at the time where it's like, we're just happy we've got a new game, than having a little bit of like, not deceit, but actually.
Right.
Another big issue that people had were the amount of maps that were playable. And it's like, oh, there's only 4 planets and you can't have space combat. They're going, we just haven't announced more yet.
Right.
So there are 4 playable planets: Tatooine, Hoth, Endor, and Sullust. But we know that Jakku is another one because it's free downloadable content that everyone gets. It's just that if you pre-order it, you get it a week early.
Right. Because, we saw that thing with Boba Fett in the background, because I think John and I were talking about last week that it looked like Jakku because the Star Destroyers.
But there's also a sand crawler.
They're saying that's Tatooine. In that interview, it was Tatooine. So wait a minute. So Boba Fett was on Tatooine, and that's really where they said, no, hold.
That's when they're like, just
back.
Stop asking us about Boba Fett.
This is when they said, I quit to Kathleen Kennedy.
You did not see Boba Fett in that trailer.
But I get it, and I think once the story campaigns, the other games are really going to... I think it sets the stage for the rest of the games that are coming out going, whoa, we've got to be really careful here.
I think it's a smart move, to be honest with you, too. I think if the main story campaign that you're playing is all going to be canon, but then you can have a multiplayer battle that isn't canon, that's the way to do it. Look, if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read a new Star Wars novel, I want everything mentioned in that novel to relate to the films. I don't want to... there's only so much reading capacity I have, so I don't want to do that on a legend story that's not going to relate to the films.
Right.
But playing a video game is a different experience, man. With how deep and detailed these sprawling worlds are, if I go off on some battle and I'm Boba Fett and I'm hitting on Jabba the Hutt's best gal, that doesn't necessarily need to be in the movie for me, and I don't necessarily want it to have to adhere to those strict guidelines of what canon is.
I think that if people go into it knowing that this is just, first and foremost a shooter game, and a shooter game where it's like, all right, boom, enemies, shoot them, go. It just so happens that they're in a Star Wars universe. I think people are so hungry for a story and like what's happening with these characters. That's not what a Battlefront game is all about. The thing is, though, I saw a graphic going around which was like what Star Wars Battlefront 2 offered and what so far Star Wars Battlefront 3 is offering, and they do not add up.
Right.
2 had more of everything,
right?
So far,
and that's true. And I think that what that also is, it's what they're doing with the technology, though. You also got to give these guys some slack. They're doing things that have never been done before. Even the way that they're shooting these things with the what's it called, the photographer? Do you remember the actual word that they used?
Grammar.
Whatever it's called. They're basically going into, I think I told you about this, they're going into Lucasfilm, like anything you see in Battlefront, it's actual photography.
They're at LucasArts and they're at the Redwood Forest.
They're taking all that
pictures of everything.
If you see a lightsaber in the game, that's an actual lightsaber.
Yeah.
So it's what they're doing and the way they're putting it together. It's a lot of detail, so they were able to do that. What's that?
Well, just as a gamer, if it looks great, that's fine, but it's only one element of a game.
Right.
And like gamers, we want perfection. We want a good game. So it's like it could look great and sound great, but if it hasn't got good gameplay and it doesn't have enough on offer and no replayability in there.
Well, what if it's 4 planets, though? Just 4 planets, but the game itself on all those planets is spectacular. Do you need 8 planets, or can you have fun just playing those 4 planets?
Usually if I'm playing an FPS online, after a bottle of wine, everything's great.
Okay, there you go.
I think that's a good metaphor for life.
Yeah, she's drunk right now. Okay, let's let's go to the next topic.
Okay, hold on.
The blah blah flea flaw flaw flaw.
The Clone Wars last batch episodes are online for people. Now, you're excited about this because you love your Clone Wars, even though I read time and time again that you do think Rebels Season 1 is better than Clone Wars.
Here's the thing. When people say, oh, Clone Wars is so much better than Rebels, if you compare how many seasons there have been in Rebels? 1. How many of Clone Wars? 6. If you compare Season 1 of Clone Wars to Season 1 of Rebels, Season 1 of Rebels is a better show. You cannot compare 6 seasons against 1. It's not fair yet. So as of one season against one season, Rebels is the better out of the two, in my opinion. I think that it's got a more cohesive storyline throughout it. You have to watch these things in it's Clone Wars. You have to watch them in chronological order in order to put together the story. You can be it's confusing at first when you watch it. If you've never seen it before and you don't know and you don't watch this show to know that you have to watch it in chronological order. It's definitely, I love the Clone Wars, and I love this storyline that came out. The last batch. They showed it at Celebration. I also think that's really cool that some of these storylines that they had backed up, instead of just scrapping them out, they still put this animation. You can find these things, by the way, on I believe it's
the official Star Wars website.
Yeah, so if you go there and check it out, this is actual canon as well. It's the stories that they wanted to tell and were going to tell. And they're characters that people wind up loving. So I dig that this is online. Mark,
you make a great point about Rebels versus Clone Wars, too, is that Rebels, the way that Rebels ended up in Season 1 and the way that it kicked off Season 2, it gets so much more intense with every episode. It's like the last 4 episodes of Rebels I've seen, I'm like, no, that was my favorite episode. So if you say that Clone Wars is anywhere near competitive with that, then that means that I should probably go back and watch Clone Wars, because I've never seen Clone Wars. I tried to watch the movie on an airplane and I almost threw up. But I hear that the show is a lot better than the film, so that's probably the next project.
Well, these 4 unfinished episodes, they're called The Bad Batch.
Yes.
Let me read out the synopsis and tell me if you're interested or not.
This will be fun.
Alrighty. This was about Clone Force 99, the team of mutant clone troopers on an operation to liberate Anaxes from Admiral Trench alongside Captain Rex and Anakin Skywalker, and their attempt to rescue an ally previously believed to have perished in battle.
I like it because of Rex.
He's going to be a key player
in Rebels. If you've seen trailer 2, sorry, it's out on the internet here. So Rex is back, and I like that they're releasing this again too for people like Mark, who now, let's say Mark's curious and he goes to StarWars.com to watch this particular episode, right? And then he goes, wow, and then he watches Rebels Season 2 and says, oh, Rex, I want to learn more about that guy. It gets him to go back into Clone Wars. So I dig it. I think it's smart.
I just like that you're talking about me like I'm your son. Like, this is for little Mark here, who doesn't know how to use a computer by himself. Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. It sounds cool.
Slugger.
Yeah, mutant clone trooper sounds odd to me.
Yeah,
Nightcrawler
is one of the.
Yeah, just all mutant conversation.
But I like that they put it out there, and I think that, like I said before with Dave Filoni, he put it out there because it's a story that he wanted. He was proud of. He wanted to get out there. It's the same thing they're doing with Dark Disciple. The Dark Disciple, they probably didn't ever do the animation for it or start going, but it was stories that they wanted to tell with Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos, and they said, this could be a cool novel, and they did. The stories that they liked and they thought were cool, they're getting it out there one way or another.
I feel like if Star Wars at the moment, just to sort of show what kind of fan you are or want to be, it's like you've got all the movies and it's almost like you're reading it like a book, and every time there was a key word you could click on it and then see everything else you can find out about them.
Cool.
It's that kind of thing. So it's like Captain Rex, click, oh wow, there's episodes, there's a 4-part series here, there's going to be in Rebels, and it's like the more you kind of click them, the deeper it goes.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to know all that stuff, you don't have to.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, what is next?
Let's talk about some of the new comics. We're up to Princess Leia, issue number 3, and Star Wars, issue number 4. Let's talk about how they're progressing.
Now, one of the things I'd like to let you guys know, and I think one of the dynamics that's cool to have Mark here, is that, Mark, primarily you're like the movies guy and Rebels fan now too.
Yeah. I can take down anybody at the original trilogy trivia, most people, and the prequels I get a little with some of it, but Rebels, I'm locked on. I'm not a big reader. I don't have a lot of time to even listen to them online, so I rely on you guys to give me an accurate description of what we're getting in these comic book series, which so far sound fantastic.
That's what I love about it, is the fact that the Star Wars hardcore fans, even if they're not necessarily reading it, right? I could talk to Mark. Like every time I read a story or comic book or novel, I tell him about
There's a few text messages involved.
Yeah. But it's never, and this show you what a Star Wars fan is. He's never like, oh, okay, dude, whatever. He's like, okay, more? What's it about? Oh, okay. He's like, I'm not going to read it.
You do it right, though. You're like, dude, do you want to know what happens? Do you want to know what happens? I'm like, yeah, tell me what happens.
Yeah, and so the Star Wars comic book, the way that it would rank for me, and Maude, tell me if you disagree. Right now, I put Darth Vader as the top.
Yep.
Then I'd go Kanan.
Yep.
Then I'd go Star Wars. And then I'd go Leia.
Agree.
Okay.
Mind you, Kanan, we've only seen one episode, one issue.
And it was so great.
A strong one.
And is that because Darth Vader and Kanan are so good, or is it because Star Wars, to me, would seem like the breadwinner, and is Star Wars letting you down a little bit, or are the other two much better?
Star Wars is getting much better.
Okay.
It started out almost the same problem I had with Heir to the Jedi, the book, was that it's like knocking you over the head with Star Wars references, and you're just like it feels like forced, but it's
not the good kind.
No, not the good
kind. Dark side.
The fourth issue, I think it's finding its stride, and because it actually links into things that happen in Vader issue 1 and 3, I think. Really makes it, because that's the one thing with canon and the story group. You see they're working really well in the comic world because all these things are kind of interweaving and making it work. Like they show there's parts of Vader when he showed up in, I think there was issue 1 where he's at Jabba's palace. Now he's back in Jabba's palace on Tatooine again.
I love that. I just love that imagery.
It's great.
Darth Vader walking in there, grabbing a beer, talking with Jabba.
It's great.
Actually, he is a no fuss kind of guy. He's just like, there is no room for negotiation. This is what will happen if you want to live. And Jabba's like, let's kill some things.
But you say that this story group has such a lock on what Vader is and who he was when we fell in love with him, because he's like that in the Vader comic. He's like that in the Star Wars comic. He's like that in a novel we're going to talk about in a second here, and he's certainly like that in Rebels.
And this is Vader. This time period is Vader before. Is this before?
This is after episode 4.
After A New Hope.
He's on the hunt for. So right now, where we are in issue 4 is that Vader has sent Boba Fett to look for Luke Skywalker.
So basically, Vader's in the doghouse from the Emperor because he's like, you had one job, and that was to run the Death Star, and it's in pieces now.
Everyone's dead, and you survived, so you're going to get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
And then a question any employer would have is like, wait, you were off in your Honda Civic at Chili's when everybody else was getting fired at the office. Why is that? Right. And he's got to answer to that. And so now he's going to Jabba's palace, and I bet right before he left Jabba's palace, he's like, hey, that wall over there, you should put a dude hanging there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
What I also like about the Vader series as well is that it's like he's going, who is this guy that was able to pilot through that tiny little thing and hit that
right, you see him starting to piece things together.
He's
and
like,
even
who is this?
He says the Force is strong with this one. He just doesn't know who he's talking about when he's in A New Hope.
And he's lying to the Emperor about it. Like there's a cool flashback scene of the Emperor's like, is there something else you should be telling me? And you see him flash back to where he kills Obi-Wan. And then he has an encounter with Luke, and he doesn't tell him nothing, my master. It's great.
Do you know why I think Vader at this particular moment, and the novels and the one we're about to talk about, are probably ranked the highest for most fans? We've never seen his point of view. Every movie was always through the eyes of Luke and Luke's journey. Every time we saw, I guess the prequels were Anakin's journey, and like through
not Darth Vader.
But not Darth Vader. We hardly saw only thing that we saw in the prequels of Darth Vader was the fact that he could walk like Frankenstein. That was kind of it. So this is for the very first time his story, his other journeys, what he's doing in his downtime, and you're finally getting a sense of why he's doing things, how he's behaving, and that's exciting.
I agree, and it bleeds over into issue 4 of Star Wars, because now Luke in this issue, he's feeling like he kind of failed because he goes up against Vader in issue 3, and it doesn't turn out that well. So he goes and he's got to go on kind of his own mission. Han and Leia start that banter that we love so much in Empire, because remember, this is leading right up to Empire. So
Han's dialogue is on point now.
Is it a spoiler if I know if they hooked up or not before Empire?
They haven't so far,
because it seems like when you watch Empire, it's like, those two definitely, they got a moonlighting thing going on.
Tension. Something the prequels never had.
It's very true. And so then you have that time period. Now you go a little bit before that time period, and then you land into the timeline of Princess Leia, which is a limited run. I believe it's a 6 issue.
It is. So is Kanan as well, isn't
it?
So
I wouldn't be surprised if they extend Kanan's though eventually, but this one they're not going to extend.
So to put you in the mindset of where this comic's at, Alderaan gone.
Right.
She's like, I had a whole family and a whole planet. Like, it's done.
First issue takes place from the medal ceremony.
Yeah. So she's like, da-da-da, you guys saved the day. That's great. But what am I going to do now? What is my purpose? What can I do as a diplomat and a princess of a planet that doesn't even exist anymore? So she's going around trying to find pockets of Alderaanians. And then saying, and kind of going, let's band together and give you a new hope.
Oh, nice.
I see what that's the name of one of the films.
Now, I know why I'm not the biggest fan of this series so far, and we've talked about the illustrations, and I know it's the artist's style, but why aren't you digging this?
I actually really loved the first issue. I thought it was fantastic. As you can see on this poster behind me, you've got a new character. Her name is Avan, and she's a fighter pilot in an X-Wing that admits that she doesn't like Leia, but knows that Leia's cause is very just and wants to help that.
Right.
So that relationship between those two alone is fun, and it's something that we've never seen in Star Wars before. And then it was kind of cool, Leia going, I want to take charge. I want to do my own thing. No one's going to stop me. I'm going to go against Dodonna's direct order to stay, because there is a bounty on her head. I just feel that in the last couple of issues, it's her being the martyr, her risking her life and saving. But she does, like in the original Star Wars poster, she's great at handling a blaster.
I think Leia's the best part of it, for sure. It's just the Alderaanians in this are morons. Like,
yes.
and
they're a little devastated.
But that's the thing.
If I may,
they didn't. They seemed like something you'd find on like a Saturday morning cartoon in the '80s, to where it's just like,
what are we gonna do?
It's like, we don't like you. Oh, they did that. No, I like you. Oh no. And it's just it's not. They're not developed at all. And I didn't. It was just like they were just kind of thrown in there. I do like the dynamic between. I'm sorry. What's the new character's name?
Evan. Evaan.
I love that character. And
Same.
if it wasn't put in this time period, I would start speculating that would be Gwendolyn Christie, because she'd be perfect for that role. But it's too far back in time.
When reading every issue of a comic, basically you have to know there's a straight line, and this particular line is the overall story arc. But every single issue, like an episode of a TV series, something has to happen.
Right.
So it'll kind of go on this adventure and then circle back to the main storyline every single time.
So attracted to you right now.
Oh, so nice. Why don't you play Tetris and really get it going? So that is the comic section so far, what we've been talking about. If you haven't checked out, I would suggest getting the Vader one first and then checking out Kanan.
And then go down to Star Wars. Even if I'm a neophyte, I'm starting with Vader. I'm not starting with Star Wars.
I mean, I would say Vader you'd start with, because, and then if that's the case, it's a good point, because they do interconnect. I'd probably say read Star Wars also, because I really, like I said, issue 4 to me picked it back up. And as Maude said, the Han dialogue is on point.
Oh, it's so fun reading
Issue 4 was the best one.
Mind you, I felt when they get the dialogue right, that's when it's fun.
Agreed.
And Tarkin, my only favorite points in the whole book were when Vader would communicate and he would drop in, and it felt so natural, but his classic lines,
Well, that being said, let's switch to the next topic.
Yeah, true. We've got a little book review of Lords of the Sith. This will be a no spoiler, little bit of a look into this book. We know that so far with some of the books that have come out that are officially canon, not everyone at the table has been a fan, but apparently this one is the book that will get you back on track.
I have been waiting to talk about this since we started filming. This book is everything I wanted from a Star Wars novel.
Wow.
This is, and you guys know I love James Luceno, who wrote Darth Plagueis.
Who writes very, very long-winded sentences.
Oh, stop it. James Luceno is...
I read books. I pay attention to
I don't think that you don't read books. I love the way he writes, and Tarkin was my favorite book for sure. This book is by far the champion of the new canon novels. Granted, there's only 4 of them right now. If I was going to rank them, Lords of the Sith, then Tarkin, then New Dawn, and then Heir to the Jedi. That's where I'm going. And what I would say, a lot of people, before I get into this too, as far as A New Dawn goes, I want to say something here, because I agree with mostly everything Maude has to say about that book.
Thank you.
I do. I think but what I would tell you, and what I realized as I was thinking about this, because I was like, why are we on such different pages? And I know that I tried initially to get her to do this, but just not the way she goes through books. And I think that that was the only audiobook was the only one I did was New Dawn.
I love the sound effects. I told you I did the first chapter.
But you had to.
But I was 3 pages ahead, and I'm like, hurry up.
And for me, I think that the audiobook served a good purpose for New Dawn, because and I also think that it'll also, not only the audiobook will serve you guys well for that one, I also think watching Rebels first will, because I think that if you went back, listened to the audiobook after you'd watched season 1, because we didn't know a lot about Kanan.
I read A New Dawn after I'd seen episode 1 and 2.
Right, but you still weren't 12 episodes into really knowing everything about Kanan and Hera and seeing them.
But I think that I appreciated and enjoyed Rebels more having read A New Dawn.
Right, because you knew, and that's why I think it's beneficial to read it. But I absolutely, reading that first half could be tough, because it's all about mining. So I understand that. I think because I was in the audiobook, hearing the characters, feeling I was watching something. So maybe but that being said, you don't have to do that for Lords of the Sith.
God.
You could listen to it, you could read it.
You read this thing in like 2 days.
I read this book in 2 days. I couldn't put it down. I stayed up until God knows how long to get through as much as I could. And it first of all, when you see the remember John had an issue, and he goes, well, the one thing is the cover's cool, but as we saw in New Dawn, Kanan never had a lightsaber.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's going to happen. That happens.
Oh, good. Okay.
And not only does that happen, the dynamic between the Emperor and Vader, Paul Kemp really gets these dudes, man. He really, like, when you're reading the Emperor, you hear it. Like, and they are sinister. They are the Vader and Palpatine that you knew. And when you see like the logic behind Sith, and even and he's testing Vader the whole time. Did you think about killing me while I was doing this? Vader goes, yes, good. Like, it's that kind of
and
dynamic.
this time period is right after Revenge of the Sith.
This is another problem I have with
Kanan,
Sith,
right?
I mean, Canon.
Yeah.
This is another problem I have with canon. So in the book it says 8 years after Clone Wars. Now, that could mean 8 years after the Clone Wars began, or it could mean 8 years after Revenge of the Sith. It's not really clear, because in the timeline on the book, it says it takes place right before Tarkin, which is 5 years after.
It would have to be after Revenge of the Sith.
Well, absolutely. No, absolutely after Revenge of the Sith. But it's a matter of the years.
Just as somebody who paid attention occasionally in history class, like if I was going to say something happened 8 years after the Civil War, I'm going to say that that is 1873. No, I'm going to say after the end of the Civil War.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's a little. That's one thing that's a little confusing, but nonetheless, it takes place after Revenge of the Sith. Let's say 5 years. Okay.
I'm happy with that.
So in that, there's what you should realize going into it. The entire story is not about just Vader and Palpatine. It is really about the start of the rebellion. It really is, and it's Cham Sudala, who is Hera's father, is running a band of rebels. And because of their planet, they've been fighting the Empire for a long time, and now they make their stand. And Cham Sudala has an inside guy that he's been using for a while, not necessarily a good guy. He's a guy that wants to climb the ranks of the Empire. And he now is kind of forced into helping the rebels in a way. And there's also the first openly gay character in Lords of the Sith. Mons Mars is the character's name. And I will tell you what, it's not a political statement, just who she is. And I loved that. I thought that it worked. It wasn't like, oh wait, I'm going to write her because no, it fit. It absolutely made. She's kind of addicted to spice. She's been part of the Empire for a long time. She got a little lackadaisical, and when it's time for her to be called into action, she is. There's a great. The one thing that when you look at these other books and you read these other books, what can you really take away from New Dawn? Right? You remember the meeting of Hera and Kanan, Whedon, and a couple other things here and there.
Backstory, why he's a little bit of a vigilante.
Right.
Yeah.
And same thing, Heir of the Jedi, I remember one or two things, and Tarkin, one or two things. I can tell you 5 or 6 scenes that stand out from this book.
Right. Cool.
And they're being hunted, but are they? It's the Emperor. You know what I mean? The Anakin / Vader is really struggling still. This is only 5 years afterwards. So he's trying, you hear the thoughts inside of his head of remembering. Does he get his old life back in his head? It's still that struggle, because I do sense good in you.
And that's the thing that I really struggled with, is like how the whole story of Anakin and why he was doing this for love, you know, like he was doing it for a good thing.
Yeah.
And you know, love is a way of a Jedi. But then how does he go and like watching Rebels
season 2, right?
But also seeing, you know, all the original trilogy. How does he go into stone cold empty and fear, anger?
This is what I mean with the story group, that whoever's writing these characters really nail who Vader is, because this is Vader, man. I mean, man, he is the same guy. I felt like I was watching the same guy I saw in Rebels season 2.
Fantastic.
And in episode 4. He is that stone killer, and there's a reason why.
Or he's becoming the stone killer.
He is, but it's there. It's
I had this image of meeting Darth Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith that just really put me off, because he was like a dude who had feelings, and I'm like, I don't want to see you have feelings, you're Darth Vader, but if you can pull that off in a way that is more realistic feeling to me, and maybe they pulled it off.
All it is
with this novel.
It's just the mental stuff. It's just him thinking about it.
Yeah.
He never reacts to it.
When he goes into that weird thing and he takes his helmet off and he has those
when
those
he
naps.
reacts, he's Vader. Yeah. And you see when you're reading, you're like, wow, like he's ruthless. This movie, if they made this movie, this is a rated R movie.
Oh wow,
this is a rated R movie.
It looks like an Iron Maiden album cover. I mean, everything about this says I should probably get this on Audible.com.
I want you to text me as soon as you're done with this book, because the end. If you don't tear up at the end, because
it's me, of course I will.
But it's vicious. It's this book. I say movie. So anyway, this is a book that you absolutely should get. People have been tweeting me about the canon books. What should I start with? This one. And by the way, tell Paul Kemp, he's on Twitter and he's very active with fans. Tell him that you've heard about the book on AMC Jedi Council and you're either excited to read it or you want to hear more about it. But let him know. Show him the power of AMC Jedi Council.
This is what I mean with Star Wars moving forward needing to be fueled and run by fans. It felt like maybe Heir to the Jedi, Luke's story. He knew the surface value of who this character was, and it kind of felt a little like not authentic.
It suffered from the problem. No, you're right. It suffered from the problem that Star Wars issue 1 and 2 did. It was trying to.
Oh, look, it's Star Wars. Whereas an actual fan's like, oi, Star Wars, let's do this.
Yes. Well, the other thing was Star Wars, not Star Wars, Heir to the Jedi was supposed to be a book before this merger happened. It was already going to be launched, but then I think Shelley Shapiro, who's the editor over at Del Rey, was like, well, can we turn this into a canon book? And they did. And it just doesn't feel, like Maude said, that authentic. Not this one.
It just stands out so much when it just slides into place.
And you don't want to put it down. Like, it was hard for me to get through to
I haven't had that since Harry Potter.
I couldn't put it down. I really couldn't. And the space battles, everything. Go into it realizing it's not just about these guys and that there's 3 separate stories that you're really paying attention to. Know that, and I think you'll love it as much as I do. Read it. Let us know what you think. And you can also check it out, the audio as well, too. It is available.
Out of 10?
9.
Whoa, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I'm so sold.
I love it. Okay, so that is that book. I think that's it. So now it is that part of the show where we do address the council. Addressing the council is something that each one of us every week will tell you guys out there, the council out there and the council here, something that they've wanted to talk about. And then when that person is done, we will comment and you will comment as well. And today, Mark 2D2 will be addressing the council, his first addressing of the council. Hey. The council floor is yours, my friend.
Very nervous. I felt like 8-year-old Jake Lloyd when he goes in front of the council for the first time. Hopefully this one fares better than him. I want to talk about the films that I want to see in the upcoming anthology series. We know we're going to get Rogue One. We know that it's going to be about spies stealing the Death Star plans. We got to see that incredible teaser for 15 seconds at Star Wars Celebration, and then it got these wheels a-turning. Rusty though they may be, they generated 3 other movies that I desperately want to see the anthology series tackle. Now, the first one is going to be a character that we know, that we love, but we just got such a small slice of his life from the original trilogy, and that would be Yoda. The dude's 900 years old, and we only got like the last, if you include the prequels, we got what, the last 50 years of the guy's life? It's like meeting Mickey Rooney when he was 95. You have no idea the other stuff that was going on in this dude's world. I want to see a young Yoda. I want to see Yoda with a varsity jacket. I want to
know what species he is.
I want to know. I want to see other Yodians hanging out. Are they retreated to Dagobah? Are there other ones that live on Dagobah? Is Dagobah the Florida where all the old Yodas go to retire after they're done doing their other work? If Yoda was 900 years old, where's all those other species that probably could survive that long as well? So I want to know a lot more about Yoda. Number 2 is going to be one that's going to make Christian Harloff just giddy and maybe he even rips his shirt off. I want to see, when you hear the voiceover Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Rogue One teaser, and he says, for over 1,000 years, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace in the galaxy.
1,000 generations.
In the Old Republic. I want to see the Old Republic. I want to get to know that area. I want to get to know what's it like to have just a bunch of Jedis walking around. Maybe they don't need lightsabers swinging on their sides like they're Wyatt Earp cleaning up Tombstone. Maybe there isn't a threat of an intergalactic war all the time. Maybe there is just some peace, but then maybe a threat rises up and we get some Sith Lord that comes up. Maybe his name's Darth Plagueis. Maybe it's something else. I think eventually we're going to get an Old Republic film in the anthology. Maybe that's the one that we can have rated R for you, and we won't use computerized blood. We'll use real fake blood. And the last one is a movie that might cause some controversy, but I don't care, because you know what? If people can put up with watching that idiot Wally walk around and clean up garbage for 2 hours in Pixar films, why can't we have a standalone R2-D2 movie? The guy literally saves every main character's life at some point or another in these 6 movies. It's time R2-D2 stopped being the little C-3PO sidekick and got his own standalone movie. I want to know where R2-D2 came from. And it brings up an interesting question. Is R2-D2, he's transcended just being a droid. Because remember that other droid that was like, he was a red unit and he had a bad motivator and he blew up? R2-D2 is not a dud. He's become something more than just a robot. So is C-3PO for that matter. What's going on with the AI in this universe, and where is it headed? Maybe that's just because I'm coming off seeing Ex Machina very recently, and I want to know more about how the robots interact with the humans, and if we're going to get to like a Terminator Skynet situation at some point. But I think R2-D2 has earned his own standalone film.
Well, there you go. There's a standalone. Maude, real quick, why don't you retort on that? Out of the 3 of those movies, would you want to see any of them? And if so...
Don't say it like that.
No, you made some great points in that. Standing ovation.
Which one do you want to see the most?
I mean, I know what I would rather see personally, and I think, is that the question we're going to do, an open-ended question? What standalone movie would you like to see?
No, I think out of his list, because I think that there's a total episode that we do to where we all go into the ones that we want to see.
HK-47.
Yeah.
Maybe HK-47.
That would fit into Old Republic.
No,
into the R2. The R2 movies
could also be in the R2-D2.
But he's a droid. It's true.
He's a droid assassin.
Yeah, it's true.
Really?
I don't know if I could handle an entire movie of Yoda speaking.
It would be called Wars Star.
Yeah. I just don't know if I could handle that. So I'm down for R2 and I'm down for Old Republic. Absolutely. Just having, can you picture like Lord of the Rings, but they're all Jedi and Sith? Yes.
I think
the Battle of the Five Armies, that kind of stuff. Yes.
Well, you know that's where I am with the Old Republic. I just think that they could make a new trilogy out of it and put some really good people in there, and have a really great director. Of course, the R2-D2 I could probably do without, because unless they had some other star, which they probably have to do with like a Felicity Jones type thing. But if it was getting R2 if it was his story, how do you get it through a mission or something, but with a brand new character you introduce, it could be fun. But Yoda, I'm with Maude because it's going to be tough. But not only, I don't want to see a CGI Yoda again. I want to see the puppet Yoda that I knew from Empire. If they're bringing back that type of stuff, and that's going to be hard to do for a full movie. But I would like to see what he did and like more about it. I'd like to see a younger Yoda pop up. I just don't know if I know a whole movie. But it's a great points though that you brought up.
Who owns Star Wars though? I forget who owns Star Wars.
I don't remember.
This is Mickey Mouse, right? And they do a lot of animated films.
Yeah.
And maybe R2-D2 could be a standalone animated film.
Sure.
Or maybe you put R2-D2 in, let the people Pixar take care of him and make a kids movie.
That's a great point.
That everybody can celebrate too. So,
Fantastic.
Well, there you go. So that is the address the council. Now, you guys, why don't you retort which out of Mark's, if any or all, which ones did you like that he addressed, and which ones would you like to see? Because we will, like I said, we're going to go into a full topic on that. It might be even a full episode.
I want the Job of the Hutt Martin Scorsese film in there too. Count that.
Speaking of talking to you guys, this is the Twitter time. You guys have submitted Twitter questions throughout the last week or two, and we've picked some, and now we're going to read them. So you guys are essentially addressing the council right now. Here are some of your questions. Maude.
Alrighty, first is from @TalkCanon, who says, everyone hates the prequels, but is it right for Disney to pretend that they never happened? Those stories are still important.
Well, first of all, I don't think everyone hates the prequels. I can tell you, and I'm sure Dennis could also agree, that we're many times on this show, on AMC Movie Talk, we get prequel love. And that's great, because what we also have to realize too is a lot of people grew up with the prequels. A lot of people do hold the prequels in their heart. They made a lot of money for a lot of people, and it introduced people to Star Wars for the first time. I'm not a fan of them. John certainly isn't a fan. And I don't know. I mean, Mark, I just parts of it you like.
There's redeeming values in each one of them.
But that doesn't mean it has to be for us. You fell in love with Star Wars through the prequels. Good for you. And I think that the one thing that I did notice at Celebration, though, there was not a focus on the prequels. No. And it's not to say, oh, these stink. It's for them to go, we are focusing more on the feel and the tone of the original trilogy. That's kind of where we're going with this. They're not ignoring the history, though, with this tweet here, because look at Dark Disciple. That's coming out. That fits into prequel stuff. Rex, who is coming out into Rebels, fits into the prequel stuff with the Clone Wars, which is lore from the Clone Wars. So they're definitely paying attention to it. It's just not the focus. But Maude, do you see it another way?
I don't think that they're pretending that they never happened, because they're still canon. If they really pretended that they weren't happening, they would just go, hey, that was fun, George. Anyway, back to what we're at.
Right.
I think that they're moving forward. It's all about the future. It's all about 7, 8, 9 and what's happening through there. Yeah, there are anthologies that are kind of playing around that time. But yeah, they're sticking to the original feel of Star Wars. I agree. The whole pretending there wasn't any presence at Celebration. But for someone who's called Talk Canon, it's still canon.
Yeah.
95% of the events that happen in the prequels, I'm totally cool with being canon. There's only a few
Stories
things
are great,
here
yeah.
or there. It's actually watching them transpire. I just didn't enjoy watching Hayden Christensen interact with Padme all that much. I didn't like the way that things were brought on
the
screen,
execution
but
was...
the events that actually happen are fine, and I think that you have to consider them canon. It's kind of like when you watch Family Feud and you have really smart, like 4 family members, then you have that one idiot cousin that you have to bring on.
Pineapple.
That's the one, but he's part of the family, so...
All right, what's next?
Alrighty, from Nick Parker, he says, do you guys think that Kylo Ren's Vice, I'm guessing voice, will be dubbed like Vader Maul? Assuming it's Driver, his voice is not very interesting. Intimidating. Intimidating.
I do think that it'll be dubbed. I think that there's almost something, even when we talk about the Old Republic, you think about Darth Malak and stuff. Although, I don't think that Kylo Ren is a Sith Lord. I don't think he is, because it's not Darth something, it's Kylo Ren. I think he's going to wind up being like an Inquisitor, like this dude was. I think that he will have some kind of voice modulator, whether or not it's in that Revan type mask. I don't know, but that's me. Mark, what do you think?
I'm guessing it'll be built into the story. I think it's a lot like Batman and Bruce Wayne, where Bruce Wayne has one voice and then he's got his Batman voice when he really needs to intimidate people, and I think that's the voice modulator, which is what's going to be inside the mask.
Yeah, he's wearing a mask.
So yeah.
I saw the movie last night. It's terrific.
Right. What's next?
We've got one from Nick Zamora who says, could you explain the whole mentality behind the Sith?
I know what you want to say.
Hashtag desire to have their apprentices overthrow them.
Bring it back to that book, man. If you bring it back to Lords of the Sith, you see why, because they're all about power. They're all about, like, the Emperor encourages the thought of Vader thinking he could eventually overpower him. That's what Sith are always craving, power, to be the best and be the man. You know, be the that's what they do, and that's why if you look at the history of the Sith, when Palpatine talks about Darth Plagueis in Episode 3, he talks about how he trained him with everything and eventually he killed him. And in the book, even though it's Legends now of Plagueis, it's the same thing. He killed his master, and they just that's what they kept doing all the way from Bane. That's why Bane made that rule of 2, because, and he says it, and this is canon, because he said it in Clone Wars, that when they were an army, they're all just eating and feeding off of one another. So there only had to be 2: one to crave the power, one to have the power, one to crave it. That was the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's not the way I would run my company, but I understand that if you're so power obsessed, you want to beat the next big dog on the block until eventually that dog is going to eat you. So
yeah, we've seen this happen time and time again with all parts of Star Wars. One that came to mind was when Dooku was training Asajj Ventress, and then got the order, she's too strong, get rid of her.
Right.
And he's like, all right, if that is your wish, that is what I will do.
And there you go. So let's take one more.
Which one do we want?
Go ahead, Maude.
All right, Robert Barnett. Does it bother you that we don't have any Ep 7 attached to The Force Awakens? I can't stand it. It's keeping me up at night.
Well, I was thinking about this. When you see the title for Empire Strikes Back, it doesn't have Episode 5 in the title. It has it in the crawl. We don't know that Episode 7 won't be in the crawl. And if that's the case, then I'm fine with it. But how about you guys? Maude?
We made it really clear that there's going to be the anthology, and then there's going to be the next
episodes, right?
Yeah, episodes.
Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, I get the question. I get why it's keeping you up at night. I think you can sleep safe. It's going to be Episode 7, December 18th, in a theater near you.
You think in the crawl though? It doesn't have to be in the title of the, like, on the poster.
The thing keeping me up at night is this going to be a crawl in the anthology, because they kind of referenced something about the crawl when they did that panel, but I'm not sure if they're going to do a crawl for each anthology film as well. I
don't think they are. I think they said no.
What?
I think they said no
but
crawl.
It's in the
that's what I remember them saying, but then I remember us walking out and being like, wait, did you? I don't know. I remember hearing them say there wasn't going to be a crawl, so that'll keep you up at night for the next year.
I knew that there weren't going to be any Jedis, and I was like, don't take away the crawl as well.
Yeah. So you're okay with the Episode 7 as long as it's in the crawl?
I sleep very well at night.
That's it. That is another episode of AMC Jedi Council. We had a lot of fun here today. I hope you guys did too. Make sure that you share. Make sure you share this show for anyone who is a Star Wars fan. If you have friends that are Star Wars fans, tell them about this show. Help us help grow the council. That's what your job is out there. As I said that almost right.
Grow the council so big that
like
it kills you. It's
like
you're
it is. That's right.
Yeah.
Crave the power. Crave the power. But I'd like to thank my council today. First, Queen Amidala, where can they find you?
Hey there, you can get me on all social medias at Maude Garrett. And I also want to have a little bit of a shout out to Paul Borthwick, who's actually done some amazing drawings for us. And this one is, I suggest, a new technique, new strategy. Let's the Wookiee win. We all got one.
Yeah, Paul's the man. Like on my Facebook page, you see there's a picture of me as a Sith Lord throwing someone who I believe is you, Ellis, out of a window.
Thanks, Paul.
And it's
thanks, buddy.
It's great. He's a tremendous artist. So, and speaking of Mark Ellis, Mark, where can the good people find you?
You can find Red 5 standing by next week in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'll be at Acme Comedy Company, or as you guys call it, Hoth. You can find me online at Twitter and Instagram at 5150Ellis. Let's talk Star Wars.
And I am Darth Harloff, telling everybody to stay on target. Stay on target. And thank you very much. Find me on Periscope, Kristian Harloff, as well as Twitter and Facebook.
I woke up today. Let's Periscope it. I'm walking to my car. Let's Periscope it.
You just wait until you're on there. You know you're going to be addicted. You know it. Good.
I'm brushing my teeth. Let's
Periscope this right now.
I will bet everything that I own that eventually there will be a Periscope video of Maude Garrett doing the Duel of Fates in a window somewhere. I guarantee
Already done it on Vine.
Again, going to happen again.
6 months ago.
Anyway, find me Kristian Harloff on Twitter and Facebook, and make sure that you keep hashtagging AMC Jedi Council and tweet out to Paul Kemp and tell him that you're excited to read Lords of the Sith and go check that out. For everyone on the council, may the Force be with you.
Always.